Big Ten conference here today. We're gonna be doing the bad before the good. Purdue got Purdue going 11, 1-11 this year. Um, Jeff Brom's first year, it's gonna be a tough year for them. Last time they had a bowl was 2012. They've been since 2013. They've been 1-11, 3-9, 2-10, 3-9. They've won one Big Ten game the last 3 years. Didn't win a Big Ten game in 2013 when they went 11-1. But the reason that they're going to go 11-1, they're going to win one. I have them winning one game against Illinois at home. They beat Illinois at Illinois last year. I got them winning at home. And they are playing Louisville, Ohio, a good Power 5 team, and then Missouri. So they have a pretty tough non-conference schedule to get them ready for their Big Ten schedule. David Blogue is their quarterback. He was their starter last year. 3,352 yards, 25 touchdowns, 25 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. Needs to get his interceptions down a bit. Running back wise, Markle Jones is back. He was their leading rusher with 641 yards, 4 touchdowns. Also, Brian Langford Johnson, second leading rusher, is back, 332 yards, 2 touchdowns. Receiver wise, they lost their top three receivers. Cole Herdman's their best returning starter, 35 catches, 344 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's their tight end. So they got some new wide receivers, but they're some tenured wide receivers. Jeffrey Phillips, 17 catches, 172 yards last year. Terrence Landers is a sophomore. Corey Holmes is a junior. We'll see how they do this year. Two linemen on the offensive line. Defensively, they actually have a lot of returning starters on defense. Hopefully, this will help the team out. This year, Marcus Bailey, 97 tackles last year, 4 interceptions. Real good linebacker. He's a sophomore. Glenn Robinson, 61 tackles, 5 sacks. Defensive lineman. Let's see here. Juwan Bentley, 50 tackles last year, 7 for a loss. Danny Icheku, 52 tackles last year. So they have a lot of their tacklers back, a lot of their defense back, 8 of the 11. But I still got them going 1-11. Illinois, I think will be 3-9 this year, just like that last year they were 3-9. This is Lovie Smith's second year here. On defense, they got a pretty good secondary, good middle linebacker Trey Watson, another good linebacker Jake Hansen, and a good secondary Patrick Nelson, who's a sophomore, Stanley Green, another sophomore, and then Jalen Dunlap, who's a senior. Jalen Dunlap had 11 passes blocked last year. And Kendrick Phillips is the senior running back. He had 748 yards, 7 touchdowns last year. Look for him to have another good year. Malik Turner, their top receivers, back, 48 catches, 712 yards, 6 touchdowns. Mike Dudick, a junior, should have a pretty good year. And let's see, Carmoni Green as a freshman. Watch him. And they've got a quarterback battle going on. 3 offensive linemen, and they have a quarterback battle going on between Dwayne Lawson Jr., Chase Crouch, and Jeff George. Jeff George played a little bit last year. Crouch played a little bit last year, and then Lawson is a transfer from Virginia Tech. We'll see who ends up being the starter there. I think it'll either be Lawson or Crouch. But either way, 3-9. Probably one of those things where most of them will all get time during the year. I got next. I got Nebraska, 6-6. Nebraska. They gotta. I mean, it's not like a terribly tough schedule there in the Big Ten, but I see them. Winning the games they're supposed to win, losing the games they're supposed to lose. I see them upset Northwestern. I see that, I guess, as a game to look to, and then losing to Iowa, the last game of the year, which is a game that's a toss-up. But Tanner Lee, transfer from Tulane, we'll see what he brings to the table. I think he's kind of in a quarterback battle, though, with the other guys, Patrick O'Brien and Tristan Giba. Trey Bryant and McKeel Wilburn are the running backs. Trey Bryant didn't really play a whole lot last year. He slated as a starting guy. Devin Ozigbo, another running back. Stanley Morgan, 33 catches, 453 yards, 2 touchdowns. Best receiver back. Demore Pearsonell, real good return man. And then he also had 20 catches, 254 yards, and a touchdown last year. Watch out for him at wide receiver. J.D. Spellman, redshirt freshman, watch out for him. Tight end Lindsey, he might get some time. Another good wide receiver. They have 3 returning offensive linemen, so that's pretty good. Defensively, they got a really good secondary. Most of their leading tacklers that are back is their secondary. Kyrion Williams, a free safety. Joshua Kalu, another free safety. And then Aaron Williams, the strong safety. Chris Jones, another cornerback. I guess they go with a lot of, I think the nickel type sets where they have 5 defensive backs. I think that's why they have, 2 free safeties that, had 69 and 66 tackles last year. And then Chris Jones had 3 picks. He's supposed to be one of the top players for Nebraska too. So they have a really good secondary. And then they're on defensive line. Carlos Davis, he had 2 sacks last year, 24 tackles. He's just a sophomore. And then Mick Stolderberg, their nose tackle, had 25 tackles, sack and a half. Freedom Akinmoladum had 4 sacks, 32 tackles last year. That's on the defensive line. Chris Webber, he had only 17 tackles last year, but he didn't start. He's a senior this year. I look for him to be a good player. And then Dedrick Young, another linebacker, he had 60 tackles last year. So Nebraska, I see them going 6-6, kind of in the sense of rebuilding year. I feel like they had a lot of older players last year, and they're gone now. I'm losing, running back, quarterback's tough. Not them yet. Iowa, I got going 6-6. I like Iowa's defense. I like Josie Jewell and Bo Bauer and Miles Taylor. Those are all some good defensive players. Josie Jewell had 124 tackles last year. Really good player. Bo Bauer had 91. And then Ben Neiman had 85 tackles. And then where is looking for somebody? Okay, there he is. Brandon Snyder. Brandon Snyder had 85 tackles and 3 interceptions last year. He was a real good player for them. Just a junior. And then Parker Heiss, a defensive lineman, had 4 sacks, 37 tackles. Nathan Bazarda, another defensive lineman, 39 tackles. only 1.5 sacks. Matt Nelson, 43 tackles, 5.5 sacks. He's a defensive end, left end. Nathan Stanley looks like he'll be the starting quarterback. Akom Wadley will be the only guy rushing this year. He had over 1,000 yards last year, and he shared a lot of time with LaShawn Daniels. LaShawn Daniels also had over 1,000 yards. They both had 10 touchdowns each. I look for Akom Wadley to have a pretty good year, but also Tokes, Akinrabe, their backup will get a good amount of playing time, or Torin Young will get playing time, because they do share their the wealth of the backs a lot. They do run the ball a lot. Matt Vanderberg is back this year. We'll see how he does this year, and they are returning 4 of the 5 offensive linemen, so they should really honestly do pretty good offensively. It's going to be how the defense holds up. And then also quarterback play is going to be big. But they do run the ball a lot, so it shouldn't be that bad. 6-6 was what I could project. They could be a little bit better. They could be a little worse. Or I don't see them getting a whole lot worse than 6-6, though. Next team in the Big Ten West, Minnesota. PJ Fleck's first year here. I honestly think he's going to be a pretty successful coach here. The team that he's inheriting is an all-right team. He's getting, 3 of his offensive linemen back. He's got a real good kicker in Emmett Carter, who went 22 for 24 last year. A 53-yarder was his long, and he made 2 50-yarders last year. He was real solid, a real good kicker, NFL prospect. And Nate Wozniak and Rashad Steele should be some good receivers. The main issue is going to be quarterback on offense. Demery Croft, Seth Green, Connor Rhoda. Connor Rhoda is the only one that's had some experience on the team. Demery Croft is a sophomore, and Seth Green's a redshirt freshman, and Rhoda's the senior. So we'll see what happens there. I'm thinking Croft will probably be the guy. Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks is a real good thunder and lightning combo. At running back, Rodney Smith is more of the catching the ball out the backfield, shiftier guy, while Shannon Brooks is more of the right down your throat type runner. Both of them will get a lot of time each. On defense, Jonathan Cleston, 80 tackles last year, 2.5 sacks. Best tackler on the team. He's a linebacker. Cody Polk, another good linebacker. Steven Richards on the defensive line, 7 sacks last year, 31 tackles. Duke McGee, 54 tackles and an interception. And Antoine Winfield, their safety, 52 tackles and an interception last year too. Another good player. And Blake Cashman, 45 tackles, 7.5 sacks. Another, I think he's a linebacker for them. I think they're going to go 8-4 this year. I think they're going to be pretty good. I have, they're going to be right behind, Northwestern and Nebraska, or Northwestern and Wisconsin. So obviously number 2, Northwestern. I think Northwestern is going to have a real good year. They've got 8 returning starters on offense, 8 returning starters on defense. They're weak in the sense that the wide receiver position. They did get transferred Jaylen Brown from Oregon. We'll see how he does this year. Flynn Nagel is their best receiver back. 40 catches, 447 yards, 2 touchdowns. Maybe they'll use Jaylen Brown the way they used Austin Carr last year. They used to throw to Austin Carr a lot, 90 catches, 1,247 yards, 12 touchdowns. He was a huge part of their team that's gone now, so that's going to be tough, but they really weren't that good last year, 7-6. I look for Justin Jackson. He had 1,600 yards last year at 15 touchdowns. I see him having another huge year. And Clayton Thornton, 22 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, pretty good ratio, and he had 3,000 yards throwing. I look for him to have another good year throwing the ball. I look for this team to be real successful. And then the defense that they're bringing in, that they bring on the other side of the ball is really good. Not to mention the four offensive linemen that they bring back also. So defensively, their secondary is honestly pretty good. I think it's a little bit underrated. Montreal Hartage, Keith Watkins are their cornerbacks. Hartage had 60 tackles last year and 5 picks. And then, let's see. Where's Walker at? I don't see Walker on here. Anyways, Keith Walker is a senior this year. He's supposed to be pretty good. I don't see his stats though. And then Kyle Quero is a senior. He had 53 tackles, 2 interceptions. And then their best player in the secondary is Goodwin Akawabuki. He had 108 tackles, 2 interceptions last year. He should be a good NFL prospect. Some other good players that they have: Nate Hall had 73 tackles. He's a linebacker. Brett Walsh had 37 tackles last year. He's a senior linebacker. Watch out for Nathan Fox, sophomore middle linebacker. Tyler Lancaster and Xavier Washington are on the defensive line. Washington had 4.5 sacks last year, 38 tackles, 37 tackles. Or what is that? Where is he? Lancaster had 28. Had 28 tackles last year. I got them going 9-3. Real solid season. It was a real toss up. The Wisconsin game, they're both coming off of a bye, but I think just going into Camp Randall, and then the team that Wisconsin has this year is pretty solid. When we talk about the team Wisconsin has, they're returning all their offensive linemen. That's something that I'm really high on, is when someone's able to do that. They always have, if they have a solid offensive line, then they're really good. It doesn't really matter who the running back is; they're going to excel behind the offensive line. Chris James is slated as a top guy. Rashard Shaw is a guy else to watch. He had 485 yards, 5 touchdowns last year. Shaw did. Austin Ramish had 3 touchdowns. So watch him to get some carries around the goal line. That's their fullback. Alex Hornibrook will be the quarterback this year. He'll be the guy. I don't think he'll be sharing time as much with somebody unless he just really starts playing bad. We'll see how he does. I think he's honestly an all right quarterback. I don't really think he liked the whole switching up and back and forth last year. Jazz Peavy is a good receiver. He had 43 catches, 635 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then Troy Fumagalli, one of the top tight ends in the nation. He had 47 catches, 580 yards, 2 touchdowns. True Fumagalli is one of my favorite tight ends, draft picks in the country. And defensively, they have a really solid team defensively. One of the stoutest, linebacking cores. T.J. Edwards, 89 tackles last year, 3 sacks, 3 interceptions. Jack Clichy, 60 tackles, only 1.5 sack, 5.5 tackles for a loss. And then Grant Dooley, he had 59 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss and an interception. Christian Bell is a redshirt freshman from Alabama. Watch him. And then secondary, Derek Tyndall, senior, real good defensive back, 34 tackles, 3 interceptions last year. Dakota Dixon, another real good defensive back. He's a strong safety, 60 tackles, 4 interceptions last year. I like them to go 11-1 and win the Big Ten West. I think their schedule's formidable. I think they're better than most of the teams on here. Michigan will be tough, but Michigan's at home. Northwestern will be tough, but it's at home. BYU's early in the season. Hopefully they're ready for that one. But this is a team that I think as they build a chemistry throughout the year, they can continue to get better. This is honestly a team that can go 12-0. But I have them losing the last game to Minnesota. They've beaten Minnesota a lot of years in a row. And maybe this year, this might be the year that Minnesota pulls rabbit out of the hat. At that point in the season, they would already have won the Big Ten, so they would still be playing the Big Ten championship. So I don't know. Watch it. I don't know. We'll see. Minnesota played them pretty good last year, and I don't know. I think the main thing is I think Wisconsin will lose one game during the season. I don't know which game it'll be, but I'd choose for it to be Minnesota. And then I see them representing, like I said, the West and the Big Ten. All right, so the East, Rutgers is dog shit. They've got some good NFL prospects, though. Quarterback battle between Kyle Bolin and Giovanni Resigino. Resigino was the starter last year. Bolin is a transfer from Louisville. So we'll see what happens with the quarterback battle there. I would think Resigno will get the start. Robert Martin and Janorian Grant are the two NFL prospects that I like. Janorian Grant had a real good year until he got hurt last year. And 20 catches, 210 yards. Real speedy guy. He had 16. He had 140 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Juwan Harris is their best returning wide receiver, statistically wise, 39 catches, 481 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Robert Martin, their senior running back, 648 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a real good running back. And the returning 2 offensive linemen isn't that great. Defensively, though, they've got a lot of returning guys on defense. Defensive line, Kamiko Ture, and then they got Sebastian Joseph, another guy on the line. He had a sack and 30 tackles last year. Darnell Davis, 2 sacks, 41 tackles. Linebackers, Trevor Moore, he led the team in tackles, 102 tackles. Deontay Roberts, he was second on the team in tackles, 95 tackles and an interception. Tyreek Maddox-Williams, another linebacker, 47 tackles. And then their secondary is kind of, I think, their strong suit. Isaiah Wharton and Blasoon Austin, 2 real good cornerbacks. Austin had 41 tackles. Wharton had 46. They both had a pick each also. A lot of passes blocked too. Shaquan Hampton is another guy in the secondary that's good, 46 tackles, 1 interception. Key Harrison had 52 tackles too in the secondary. So I got them going 3-9 though, nothing crazy. They've got a couple easy games that'll give them a win, and then I have them winning against Purdue at home. So nothing crazy. Maryland, I think Maryland's not going to be that great this year. I think they'll have issues at the quarterback position. Caleb Henderson transferred from North Carolina. Kasem Hill is the other guy. Tyrell Pigram, another guy. Pigram was the guy that played the most last year. He wasn't a starter or anything, but he played a little bit. Strong suits of the offense. Ty Johnson, he had over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns last year. DJ Moore is another strong suit, 41 catches, 637 yards, 6 touchdowns. Ty Johnson had 206 yards receiving, 16 receptions, and a touchdown. Derek Hayward is another guy that is a returning guy. He's a tight end. Offensive line, they got 3 returning starters. So it's all right. It's an all right deal here. And then defensively, it's good. Jermaine Carter, 110 tackles, 6 sacks last year, an interception. Middle linebacker, one of the top players in the Big Ten. He's back. Shane Cockrell, 108 tackles, 3 sacks. Another linebacker, he's back. Darnell Savage, a safety. He had 59 tackles and interception. That's their top 3 players. They're all back. And then, then they have some other guys. Jesse Anabonham, he had 9 sacks last year, 46 tackles. Kingsley Opara, 3 sacks, 41 tackles. J.C. Jackson, 40 tackles and interception. Josh Woods is a senior free safety. He had 41 tackles last year. They've got a good amount of returning starters. I just don't really see them doing that whole much. I like DJ Durkins. I thought they did good. I thought he did pretty good last year, going 6-7. But he played a lot of cakewalk. His first 4 games were cakewalk. And then he beat Rutgers and he beat Michigan State when they were, really hurt. So I think they're going to go 3-9 this year. Their preseason schedule's not as weak. They're playing UCF in Texas at Texas, so we'll see what happens with them. Like I said, 3-9. Michigan State, I think this is a rebuild year. Only 4 returning starters on offense, 4 returning starters on defense. Only 2 offensive linemen are returning. Hunter Rison, a wide receiver to watch. He's a freshman. Darrell Stewart, another wide receiver to watch. They don't really have any stats. They didn't do much last year for him. Donnie Corley's their best returning wide receiver, 33 receptions, 453 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tristan Jackson, another wide receiver to watch. Best player on the offensive side of the ball for them is L.J. Scott. He's an all Big Ten talent. One of the best running backs. Had over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. I see them riding him a lot this year. I think he's going to have a good year. I think their biggest issue, just like a couple of these other teams, is quarterback. Brian Lewerke. He is a sophomore, and he's competing with DeMonterry. DeMonterry you probably saw last year if you saw any of these games. And then Messiah DeWeaver is another guy that is competing for that job. I see Lewerke getting the start, but I see him struggling. Gerald Holmes is another good running back, 458 yards, 5 touchdowns last year. But I see them going 6-6. Winning the games they should win, losing the games they should lose. Nothing exciting. Indiana, Hoosiers, Tom Allen, first year here. I like Tom Allen. The hire Tom Allen. It's always good when you don't, just completely dismantle a team. When you go for like the defensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator, I think it was good. I think it was a good hire. I think what also is good, 9 returning starters on defense. That's his strong suit. He was the defensive coordinator. And then, 6 on offense. He's got 3 linemen back. That's good. Griffin Oaks did miss 10 field goals last year. He missed all 3 of his field goals that he tried from over 50 yards, 5 from 8 from 40 through 49. He's a guy that missed all through any of the yard ranges. But I don't know. They had a lot of confidence in him. I look for them to have more confidence in him this year. I think he probably worked over the offseason after the kicks they did miss. He missed a couple big kicks. So we'll see how that goes. I think that's going to be a big key in how their record goes this year also. And then offensively, Ian Thomas, tight end, he's a senior. He's here. And then other wide receivers, Simi Cobbs. Simi Cobbs was out, I think, last year or let's see here. I don't think he played. Well, let's see. I think he had a red shirt. He got redshirted last year for injury, medical red shirt last year. So Simi Cobbs is a wide receiver that he's a real top talent. He's a junior, NFL prospect, and then Nick Westbrook's the best leading receiver on the best returning receiver on the team. 54 catches, 995 yards, 6 touchdowns. Nick Westbrook's a real good talent. With Simi Cobbs, I think that would be good. Richard Lago is the lone guy now. He can run the ball a bit. And Laglow had 19 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. He's the main thrower. He wasn't as much the runner, I guess. Yeah, Diamond was the runner. He was more the thrower. So scratch that what I said at first that he was the runner because he's the thrower guy, not the runner. They got the two quarterback system last year, but I don't know what they're going to do this year if they got another runner. But he threw for 3,362 yards last year. I always butcher my numbers, but he threw for a good amount of yards last year. And then Mike Majetti and Tyler Nati are the two running backs that'll be back. They didn't really rush for a whole lot of yards last year. And they're new. Cole Geist, Devontae Williams, some running backs to watch out for there. Isaac James is another wide receiver to watch. Defensively, I honestly like this team defensively. Tony Fields and Jonathan Crawford in the secondary. Crawford had 71 tackles, 3 interceptions last year. Marcelino Ball, a linebacker, 75 tackles, 2 interceptions, real good player. Tegray Scales, top NFL prospect on this defense, 126 tackles, 7 sacks, 16 and a half tackles for loss and interception last year. Huge talent. I think we'll have another huge year. Tony Fields had 70 tackles, 2 interceptions. Line-wise, Nate Hoff, 2.5 sacks, 38 tackles last year. Greg Gooch, a good player, 26 tackles and a sack. I got them going 7-5. I think they'll be all right. Nothing crazy, but better than the Hoosiers have been in the past. Wolverines. I think Wolverines will start the year hot. And I think they'll slowly fade when they start to play, at Penn State, at Wisconsin, and then I think, they'll lose to Ohio State at the end of the season. But Rashad Gary will have a really good year. Defensive end sophomore. Maurice Hurst, he had 34 tackles, 4.5 sacks last year. Chase Winovich, 35 tackles, 5 sacks. A DN. Mike McCray is their one of their lone returning starter on defense, 76 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 2 interceptions. He's a senior. He's real good. Devin Bush, a sophomore. We'll see what he can do. He's the middle linebacker. Kalik Hudson, another sophomore linebacker. Watch him. Lavert Hill and David Long, 2 sophomore cornerbacks. This is a real young team, but these guys are real talented, so we'll see what they can do. Mason Cole, Ben Bredesen is their 2 returning offensive linemen. Tyrone Wheatley is supposed to be a pretty good tight end, sophomore. They got some studs at wide receiver, some straight prospects. Donovan Peoples-Jones, one of the top freshmen in the country. We'll see what type of season he has. Tyreek Black, another good wide receiver that they got. Ian Bunting is another tight end that they have. Watch him. And then Wilton Speed. I like Wilton Speed as a quarterback. I think he'll continue to try to raise his stock throughout the year as a prospect. He's only a junior, so he can come back for a senior year. I think this team can be real deadly next year. I got them going 9-3 this year. Chris Evans, I think, will be a good running back. He'll fill the spot. They'll start to find other guys. Ty Isaac, a USC transfer, and Kareem Walker, some other guys that'll come that'll play some. But I think Chris Evans will have a pretty good year. He had 628 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. 6 catches, 87 yards last year. Also, solid year for Michigan. Typical Harbaugh year. I think he gets over the hump next year when these guys are a little bit more experienced. Hopefully they'll stay instead of going to the draft. But a lot of them have – they have to stay for a couple years, but a lot of them have the talent to move on. Penn State, I think the way they ended the year last year, I think it's contagious. I think they'll continue to play good this year. I got them going 11-1. I think, Ohio State's got that game really marked on the schedule this year. It's at home for Ohio State. I think they really want to beat Penn State. I think they think that they're better than Penn State, and I think they want to show that. But I got Penn State, handling everybody else on their schedule. Northwestern, I think will be a tough game, but I think they can handle it. Michigan at home. Hopefully they don't overlook that game. Looking for the Ohio State game, I don't think they will. I don't know how you could overlook that game. But I like Trace McSorley and Shaquan Barkley, one of the best running back, wide receiver, running back, quarterback combinations, in the nation. Combinations in the nation. And then Deshaun Hamilton, good wide receiver, 34 catches, 506 yards, 1 touchdown. DeAndre Tompkins, another wide receiver, 27 catches, 440 yards. Shaid Blacknell, he's a senior this year. He had 3 touchdowns last year. He didn't do a whole lot catching and receiving yards wise. Jawan Johnson is a real good. He was a freshman last year. He's a real good wide receiver to watch. This year, Mike Glisick is a senior this year. He's a good prospect. Tight end wise, watch out for him. They've got 4 returning offensive linemen, huge. Tyler Davis, 22 of 24 last year, real solid kicker for them. Curtis Conthren, senior defensive tackle. He was hurt last year. I'm pretty sure he got the. I think. Let me think. Let me look here. I don't know if he was hurt last year. Don't quote me on that. But he only had 21 tackles. But he's supposed to have a real good year this year. He's a senior. Manny Bowen had 68 tackles. And then Jason Cabino, senior this year, 81 tackles last year, 1 sack. I think he'll have a huge year. Marcus Allen, 110 tackles. He's a free safety. He had a really good year. I think he's going to be he's another top guy for them. I really like this team. I got them going 11-1. Losing to Ohio State, though. I got Ohio State going 12-0. I think this is Ohio State. Not Ohio State's year necessarily to win, but I think it's their year to take home the Big Ten. They're going to play in the championship game. I have them. They have Oklahoma early in the year, but Oklahoma at home. They slaughtered Oklahoma on the road last year. I think they're more talented than Oklahoma at this point in the at that point in the season. I think Urban Meyer have them ready. Lincoln Riley I don't think is ready for that game. If they get through that game, they got a cakewalk for the next 4 weeks after that, and it's building chemistry. Then at Nebraska, then they got a bye week. Then Penn State at home. I got them winning against Penn State at home. And then, at Iowa, winning, Michigan State at home, cakewalk, Illinois at home, cakewalk, and then, big game against Michigan. I think they can win the big game against Michigan in Michigan. He's had Harbaugh's number. I see them going 12-0, playing Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. Now let's talk about this team a little bit. Defensive line, tremendous. Sam Hubbard, monster, 46 tackles, 3.5 sacks. I think he'll have a huge year this year. Nick Bosa, baby Bosa. Watch out for little baby Bosa. He had 5 sacks last year, 29 tackles. I think he'll have another good year. Michael Hill. Michael Hill is a big prospect. He only had 21 tackles last year, but he's a big prospect. Twyquan Lewis, a defensive end, 8 sacks last year, 29 tackles. Another big prospect. Demont Jones, 52 tackles. He's a defensive tackle. That's a good amount of tackles for a defensive tackle. Jerome Baker, leading tackler, coming back, 86 tackles last year. Chris Worley, another real good player, 70 tackles last year and an interception. Baker had 2 interceptions. Their defensive secondary is they lost a lot of draft. There's a good amount of first round draft picks that were from the secondary. I remember Damon Webb is a senior. He'll be back. He had 57 tackles and an interception last year. They're losing Marshawn Lattimore and Malik Hooker are the guys' names, and Garon Conley is another guy they're losing. Those are some of the guys they're losing in the secondary. They're replacing them. Kendall Shepard, real good talent. We'll see how he does. Dante Booker, another linebacker. He's a senior filling in. Denzel Ward's supposed to have a real good year. He's a cornerback, and watch Jordan Fuller. He's a sophomore. Um, so defensively, they're going to be solid. Offensively, wide receiver position's a little bit of a scare, but when is it not a scare for them? Paris Edwards and Terry McLaurin are some of their best guys coming back. KJ Hill, another one coming back. Not a lot of production last year. They lost Dontrell Wilson, who had 5 touchdowns and 27 catches. Noah Brown and Curtis Samuel was their top guys, who had seven touchdowns each. Samuel had 74 catches for 865 yards. Brown had 32 catches for 402 yards. So they're replacing both of them. They're replacing, they still have Mike Weber. Mike Weber had over 1,000 yards last year and 9 touchdowns. Barrett had over 1,000 yards last year and 9 touchdowns. I think both of them will be a really tough tandem to stop this year. I think they're going to be running all over people, 4 returning offensive linemen. So I don't think the receivers are necessarily that big of a deal. That they're missing so many. Marcus Bogg is their top receiver coming back, honestly. 24 catches, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that's their tight end. Benjamin Victor, a sophomore, watch him. He should be a pretty good wide receiver this year. And but yeah, this is a team I got going 13-0. I got them beating Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. I think that game will be a real showdown. But, I think Urban Meyer will have the upper hand on Paul Crisp that day. But, yeah, this is my preview for the Big Ten. Hope you enjoyed.